Plah, plah.
It's Kapla.
Welcome to Trek Brothers.
In the best episode yet.
I'm a pile of tricorders that won't shut up, Matt.
And I'm the result of a transporter accident gone right, Aaron.
You know, the first thing I did this morning was subscribe to Trek Brothers, and I'm exhausted.
I will do that now. You look exhausted.
So I have been thinking about the Defiant from Star Trek Deep Space Nine at night a lot lately. Have you?
A lot.
Well, then let's get started with an overview to catch up some of our uglier bags, mostly water.
Hey!
Let's talk Defiant. The Defiant-class namesake, USS Defiant, NX 74205, was launched from Utopia Planitia. The genesis of the Defiant class was the Battle of Wolf 359 and the immediate threat posed by the Borg. However, by the time of launch, the Borg threat had subsided, and the Defiant was assigned to Starbase Deep Space Nine to help defend against a new threat, the Dominion. At 170 meters long, 134 meters wide, and 30 meters in height, Defiant was officially considered an escort vessel. Official designations aside, the Defiant class represented a dramatic shift towards specialized military vessels as Starfleet adapted to the modern needs of protecting the Federation. This tough little ship was well armed with 4 pulse phaser cannons, 3 beam phaser emitters, and 4 torpedo launchers capable of launching photon or quantum torpedoes. The ship was equally well defended, with state-of-the-art shields, ablative armor, tractor beam, and most unusual, a cloaking device on loan from the Romulan Star Empire. The ship was fast and agile, with a maximum speed of warp 9.5, impulse engines, and reaction control thrusters. Upon launch, the ship's engines nearly tore the ship apart due to their intense power and the ship's small size. Refining this bug allowed for fleets of Defiant-class starships to be built. The USS Defiant did have a single opportunity to complete its primary mission to fight the Borg in 2373. After fighting for hours in Sector 001 under the command of Commander Worf, the ship was ultimately disabled, but later salvaged, returning to normal duty at Deep Space Nine. A war with the Dominion began in 2373, pitting Cardassia and the Dominion against the Federation and their allies, the Klingons. The Defiant was put to good use. However, the war with the Dominion was devastating the Federation by 2375. Starfleet headquarters on Earth had been heavily damaged in a direct assault. Beta Z had been lost to Dominion advances. The highest ranks of the Klingon government had been compromised. Thousands of starships and hundreds of thousands of Starfleet soldiers had been lost. As the galactic situation escalated, the Romulans joined the Federation-Klingon alliance, and the Breen joined the Cardassian Dominion Union. Breen military forces debuted a devastating power drain weapon at the Battle of Chintaka. The Defiant took a direct hit and immediately lost comms, helm control, weapon control, and primary computer control. With manual controls frozen and the fire suppression systems offline, the ship was evacuated while under heavy enemy fire. The Defiant escape pods were allowed to flee with the other Federation Alliance survivors. A second Defiant-class ship, the USS Sao Paulo, was later renamed USS Defiant and assigned to DS9 to take the role of her predecessor.
Well, that decloaked a lot of questions for me, and considering all of this newly decloaked information, Aaron, what's on your sensors?
Look, the Defiant is a tank. It's built for a reason. But she's ugly. She's not cute. She's no Voyager. She's no Galaxy class. And I think we all know that here. It's also a really small ship, so I'm not sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, some of us might be more comfortable with small ships than others. But that doesn't stop a lot of people here from hitting the capacity, if you know what I mean. And I think you do.
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
I'm just saying, if I had $1 for every person that was in your ready room, I would be a very, very rich man.
I'm so glad you brought all that up. Boy, it's been a treat having you on the show.
Do we have to wrap it up early so you can go eject a warp core?
Do you have anything else about, so you think she's ugly and you're here to talk trash. So what else?
Let's see. I think it's interesting. The weapon systems are really interesting. They seem to be effective, but I don't know where they would store so many of the torpedoes because it's such a small ship and the fire rate is pretty high that it seems like that's like an obvious flaw, is that because it's such a small ship that it would run out of ammunition, and that they never really run out of torpedoes in the show. So it does seem kind of like a disjointed thing.
Oh, that is a really great point, and I'm wondering right now, wondering out loud, how many torpedoes their torpedo load is supposed to be standardized, because that's a really great point, because it is a very small ship. Yeah.
So that's what's on my sensors, Matthew. What do you have on your sensors? I know they're not all long range.
Oh my gosh. All right,
Matthew's a little short range in the sensors department.
Okay. It's like an empty pumpkin, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so, okay, I have a controversial opening statement here, which is, I feel like the Defiant does sort of, like you say, it's ugly, all this stuff, but I do sort of feel like it has this predecessor that no one else really talks about, and that is actually the Oberth class. I feel like the Oberth has this, it's basically like a Defiant style ship with this ugly cargo thing attached or whatever. I never really understood why the Oberth class has these two things separated by pylons, and it's was it all cargo in the lower part? Was it supposed to be some sort of not necessarily a science ship, but a versatile kind of ship? And the Oberths we've seen are a science configuration. I never really sort of made a whole lot of sense of that particular design. However, I do kind of feel like they look a little bit alike if you take away, with kind of the built-in nacelles and the low profile, things like that. I love and hate how small this ship is. I think personally I would struggle to live on a ship like this. Not that it's even meant for people to live on. But it does feel like one of those things where it's oh, it's not so small, and then but then you fit 60 people on it, and it's oh my god, there's people it's not comfortable, and I don't know, I don't like going to the mall, that kind of thing. Yeah, so with that in mind, that is sort of my other big takeaway. This is sort of this really claustrophobic space, and so for a time, Worf lived on the Defiant, right? And in that way, it's oh wow, you basically have this 5-story house with all these rooms and whatever, and that's not so bad. But it's as soon as people start coming on board, it's probably really crowded, and he probably felt a bit territorial. I don't know. That was kind of a weird situation. But lucky guy to live there all by himself, away from everybody. Although all of his stuff could probably be destroyed pretty easily. Was destroyed. So yeah, that's what's on my sensors. You look like you're muted.
I am. I said, let's get to hot topics. Somebody has long-range sensors. I'd like to mention that there's a Malon trash skull coming in hot. Matthew, I assume this is one of your friends?
Not this time. Time to fight fire with fire. Let's give 'em a bunch of trash right back. Red alert!
Time to take out the trash.
I've got something to say now. Aaron, do you think the Defiant can land?
I think the Defiant cannot land because I don't know where the gear would go.
Isn't there like gear on some of the like master displays or whatever?
Those were private drawings.
Those were preliminary, and who leaked those? We should find whoever leaked those photos.
Do you think they can land?
I don't know. I think this is the thing with the Defiant, and you sort of mentioned this like about the torpedoes. It's like I love that it like has that possibility, but there's like a big shuttle bay in the bottom of the ship too. It's like where is this all going? So it kind of stretches the imagination a bit. So I like the idea that yes, it does. Does it make Voyager less special? I don't know.
Doesn't it?
Oh, Voyager called. It feels less special. Okay.
Okay. What do you think of the interior design? Like the doorways had the Bajoran Cardassian influence. No pejoratives.
I didn't totally hate it by any means. I kind of enjoy the color palette that Trek was using a lot around those times, and it kind of borrowed a lot of Voyager's color palette with kind of the charcoals and the deep grays. I mean, less of the turquoise, but 95. What do you do? Anyway, I didn't fully understand why we had this sort of like Cardassian Bajoran designed doorways and things like this, especially if it was being designed like on Mars, at Earth, 7 years ago. Now it shows up and it's very whatever. And I feel like at one point someone had a line about this combination of Federation, Cardassian, and Bajoran technology. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, I guess, but why? What? So, how about you? What did you think? Did you like it?
I thought the lighting was really good of the bridge, especially in battle scenes. Looked awesome. Otherwise, totally agree with everything that you already said.
Okay, well, so who do you think would win? The USS Voyager, a lowly science class vessel, or the Defiant?
I mean, Voyager has single-handedly taken on the galaxy's most devastating of foes alone.
Alone together.
Alone together. So I think that Voyager would probably win, just given the odds that they have going right now. And also, it does seem like they get a lot of do-overs, like the Year of Hell, where you just got to blow up the ship and starts it all over again. Okay, who do you think would win?
I mean, really, I do think the Defiant would win. It's just so agile and it's a real force, I guess. Voyager is just really sold as an offensive vessel, which I love about it, right? I mean, I love that Voyager is this sort of action show. But I'm going to go Defiant.
Do you think it would change anything if they launched the Delta Flyer and the captain's yacht to give multiple points to be firing at one time? Because Voyager has Tribe Cobalt torpedoes, which are pretty awesome.
But the Defiant's fast, so you gotta hit it with them.
That's true.
But I don't know how powerful that is. Like maybe you could do it in space. Remember like the first episodes of TNG? They're like, a torpedo blast could damage the ship. It's like, oh, good. Okay, moving on. How many Defiant-class ships do you think they built during the Dominion War? And do you think they're still in production during the Picard era?
I'm going to take this question in reverse order. I think they are not building this ship in the Picard era anymore. I think that the Borg threat is subsided, and so I think that it is not as relevant for that particular style of ship built for that specific situation. I do think that they built, for the Dominion War, I think that they were building 50 of those ships. Matthew, How many? I have a completely this question just
I don't
came
know what
to
it's
me.
going to be. I don't know what it's going to be.
It just came to me. But my question to you is, how many Defiant class ships do you think that they built in the Dominion War? And my other question, it's a two-parter. Do you think that they're still in production during the Picard time?
I am overwhelmed by this question. Not having thought about it, I would say I feel like they probably built hundreds of these things. It just makes so much sense. Like I always thought it was weird seeing these Galaxy class ships flying around, and I think there were sort of theories that they were like largely space frames that weren't like fully fleshed out, but like engineering the bridge were like there. Even at that level, I would say forget the saucers, just send out the drive sections. We didn't really see that. We sort of saw the sort of weird Excelsior reliant, cannibalized ships, which were like as a viewer and a Trek fan, I thought were fun to see, but kind of showed like this need for recycling and like a real limit of resources. So I feel like the Defiant just was a full win. So I think are they still in production during Picard? I'd probably say no as well, right? Because the design was surely refined to be better. I don't exactly know the political climate of the early 25th century, but I don't know that they are pumping these things out.
All right,
okay.
Next question.
Yeah.
What would you change about the ship?
Change. I don't know that I would change a ton. It is an unusual design for a Federation ship. It sort of has that weird nose, and I don't know if that's something that I would maybe just give it like a bit of a different deflector. I do sort of really like the dish with the blue background, which the Defiant has the blue background, which I like, but maybe that could be fun. Or at the same time, you sort of see these modified Defiant ships, and I do feel like they're not as like aesthetically pleasing. So I think about that. How about you?
Well, it is like a warship, basically. So for me, I would put the bridge on like deck 3 and bring it off of the outside of the ship, because they're using a view screen anyway, and so I think that they should.
Yeah.
It just makes sense in a warship to protect the bridge a bit more, I think.
Okay, so what do you think the emergency evacuation capacity is? So like they have to like oh my gosh, everybody on the planet is gonna die. How many people can we literally fit on this stupid ship that
I think we can clown car 300 people in there, because it's a 192, fire max, fire chief. So I think that you can get another 100 people if everybody bends and squeezes and sucks it in. How about you? What do you think?
I was thinking maybe more, like if everybody's standing, fire marshal limit, yeah, I don't know. Because I feel like it is like a really small ship, but I was thinking maybe like 600. Is that unrealistic? Is that way too many? I don't know. We need to move on.
This isn't the first time you had unrealistic expectations for
Okay,
yourself.
we really need to move on. Now we really need to move on. Okay, okay, do you think the front nose moves? There's kind of like, oh, it moves. Like, okay, why don't you go first?
So I looked at the schematics, and I don't see how it could move. Would be like if you were like, if people were in those sections, they would just be crushed. Like it doesn't.
Do you mean emotionally?
Yeah, they'd be emotionally.
I never
crushed.
thought it would move.
They would be unprepared completely. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for it to move.
Mm-hmm.
But it does. What do you think?
Okay, like totally agree with your points. And also like why? Like to make it so they could like dock at different places maybe? It's like, why don't you just like move the whole ship? I didn't really get it. Or maybe it's some kind of like captain's yacht.
Ooh, that would actually be a really cool idea.
But it's the deflector, so
yeah, hopefully no space junk flies by while Captain's out on a stroll. Okay, I have another question. What are your thoughts on the engineering design? It's really stripped back, I think.
I liked the engineering design in general. Like, I'm glad there's an engineering set. I feel like at one point I read that they wrote a scene in engineering in the search just because otherwise they weren't sure an engineering set would ever be built. And so I'm glad there was one. You know, it kind of took the cue from the Enterprise E, where it had like red antimatter and then like blue matter or deuterium. Didn't love that. I sort of liked the blue only aesthetic, and so I didn't enjoy that on the Enterprise E, and I also did not enjoy that on the Defiant. But otherwise, I feel like it was just fine. How about you?
I did not love it. Glad it's there, but nothing beats Voyager's engineering in my opinion.
You brought her up. Okay, can you be specific? Like, what's your specific problem, ma'am?
I feel like there was a lot of like dead space in the Defiant engineering. Like all the walls were just very like flat, painted metal. They were like, so I just thought that it was like there was like looking at it looked like there was a lot of dead space. Where I feel like in other engineering, there's like just colors and lights, or just like something to give it a little bit more like of a dynamic look versus like very stripped bare bones. Does that make sense at all?
It does, and I don't know if this contributes to it, but part of like the casing of like the chamber, the deuterium chamber, or the dilithium chamber is it's like white, and I don't know if it's kind of like, it's not exactly like, it almost looks unfinished.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there you have it.
Well, that's wonderful. You know, with all this garbage behind us, why don't we cancel this Red Alert? Fun fact, 100% of the brothers here at Trek Brothers love shitposting, Trek shitposting on Facebook. If you're not a total fry, check it out.
I got something to say.
Oh, Aaron?
Yeah, well, a lot of people might not have picked up on it, but Garrick and Dr. Bashir did have a bit of a love affair on Deep Space Nine, and so I have a little post to share with you. I saw this and I immediately thought of you, Matthew. It says, my Grindr, which is like a dating app, went off in my Uber pool, and the woman in front of me said, I recognize that sound. My husband plays that game all the time. And Garrick gives her a look. And that just made me think of you. I don't know why. You know, I don't know why.
It's probably because of my neck, right?
Well, those scales. All those scales.
It's not. Okay.
As well as the vagina on your forehead.
Okay, well, mine's less pointed. But, okay, so mine is a conversation from Picard, and so it's a conversation between men, where our character says, I recently switched all of the labels on my wife's spice rack. And Captain Picard, or Mr. Picard, says, has she realized what you've done? And the response, not yet, but the time is human. Spices.
It's about spices.
Like wordplay. I don't know if thank you to the community at Trek Shitposting over at that dumb Facebook. We appreciate your candor, humor, and fun.
I have some final thoughts I'd like to share.
Yes, Aaron?
Okay, so the Defiant was utilitarian, and it technically did what it needed to do, despite being ugly. Oh, Matthew?
You know, and the Defiant was an impressive value if you're a total cheapskate, Aaron.
I have to go clean the sonic shower. Don't worry, it sounds a lot harder than it is.
Okay, well, I've got to get to the cargo bay before security finds that I'm on the loose anyway. So, thank you, everybody. This has been so fun, and take care of yourselves.